Today, I want us to look at the last part of Tally, which is about taking over balances. And you're going to use that number of Jimpeko. It is on page 22. It starts from page 22 and then up to like page 24. So the question we are going to do is a revision question. And this is how we normally examine it. It is a typical exam question. So you need to pay attention because in most cases, when we are examining Tally, we bring such questions of taking over balances. So, but before that, I had promised that I'm going to teach you another way of saving. So this very number, we are going to use a different method of saving. But just to remind ourselves, the previous two numbers that we have attempted in Tally, we have been saving using the directory of local disk C, users, public, and Tally. And please recall, I said that the way you save the work is the way you open it. So those two numbers that we did in class, we were saving them in that directory. We could open the Tally software directly, backspace, end button, and then we type there our registration numbers, if you can remember that. And then when we finish everything, we said we can go and copy our folders on the desktop. So because we were saving in that way, we also have to open it in the same way. So to open, we would again click on Tally, select a company, backspace, end button, and type the reg number that you used when you were creating that company, and then you would be able to open. So now that is the main way of saving your work in Tally, the first way that we discussed in class. Please, members, I want you to understand it because when you start working, they will not tell you that this is the folder where we have Tally. They will only show you an icon of Tally, and they tell you that if you want to access the accounts on that Tally, this is the number you put in. So you will be able to just go and open it by backspacing. You type that number and you open the company. That is the main way of saving. But today I want you to teach you another way, which is simply a shortcut. And this shortcut is going to help you a lot, especially in exams. However, like I said, sometimes you may use this shortcut and you get a challenge. So that's why I first taught you the main way, so that in case of a challenge, you can always have alternatives. But now this is what you are going to do. I want all of you to open up a folder, a new folder on your desktop in your names and registration number. In the exams, we shall tell you that save all your work in one folder. So we don't want to see that you have very many folders on the desktop. So you will open one folder and save all your work. You save the Tally work you have done and all the other Excel work that you may have done. So before we attempt this number, I want to sort this at once. Open up a folder onto your desktop in your registration number and names. This time around, we're opening a new folder to show you the other way of saving. And this is how we are going to save the number that we are going to attempt this evening. So on your folder, right click and send new. I mean, on your desktop, right click and send new. Then you go to folder. So type your name, type both your names in capital letters and put your reg number as well. I repeat that. Type your name in capital letters and put your reg number. So assuming that is my name and this is my reg number. Okay. So you put your name and registration number. Whenever you go to the exam, before you do any number, that should be the first thing you should do. Open up a folder on your desktop and rename it into your name and registration number. Now in this folder, that is where you're going to put all your work, the Tally work and the Excel work. Now, I am teaching you the other way of saving. So like I said, the way you save your work is the way you open it. Now, for those of you who didn't understand the first way of saving, the recordings are there. You can always review them. Those recordings will expire at the end of September. So you can always review them and follow how to save and open. Now, today I want to teach you the other shortcut. Now, assuming I already have my folder on the desktop, yeah? I have my folder here in my name and registration number. So I want to do the number of Tally. The first thing I'll do is I'll go into this folder and I anchor. To anchor means you're going to place it as if you're shifting it, yeah? So you place it, you see mine is moving. When I press it, you're anchoring it. So you're going to anchor and drag that folder to the Tally icon. Are you following? You're going to go to that folder you have created in your name and reg number, anchor it. To anchor means you're going to place it so that you are able to move it and drag it to Tally icon. So you see when I am dragging, it is saying open with Tally ERP. So I release it, meaning that I have dragged my folder to the Tally icon. So you have to click onto the folder. Don't open it, just anchor it, like hold it, then drag it to your software Tally. So that is by doing that, you have already saved your work in that folder, your work of Tally. Before we continue, have you understood that first step? The folder that you have onto your desktop, just anchor it, drag it to the Tally software and release it. Automatically, the Tally software will open. But now it is opening into your folder. This time around, it is not going to the local disk C. It is opening into your folder. That is the shortcut. Has everyone done that and you're on this step?
Yes, madam.
Good. So then we are going to go the normal way. By that, you have already saved your Tally software onto your folder. But this is a shortcut I've told you, yeah? Even if it is, Esther, even if it is your second number in Excel, you drag the folder the way it is. It doesn't matter whether you have Excel numbers already in there. It doesn't matter. Just drag the folder. It will still open. Okay? So I hope we are now good to go. So let's continue. We are going to continue now. We are going to create this company. So after that, let's open the question. I hope you all have this question of Jimpeko. So we are going to open the company. You go to work in education mode, and then you open Silver Edition. So we are going to create a company the usual way, yeah? I am going to go to that. Let us first create the company. We are going to close it and we shall go and open it then so that we understand this first part of saving. So I'm handling two things now. We are handling this number, but I'm also teaching you the other shortcut of saving, okay? The first place, we have dragged the folders onto the Tally icon and we have been able to open Tally. So now create a company. After creating the company, we shall close, we shall go back, and then we go back and open it in the same way by just dragging the folder, okay? So let's create this company. Now, following this question of Jimpeko, you can first go through the question that Total PLC, Box 114 Kampala, is a company which deals in petroleum products. The products attract VAT of 18%. That whenever you see that there is VAT, you just remember that you have to create a VAT account. And then they say that the company's financial year ends on 31st December of every year. Following the increase in the volume of business, the company's chief accountant recommended the computerization of the company's accounting systems And the company decided to computerize its records with effect from 1st of January 2021 using Tally accounting software. So this implies that this company was doing their books manually, and now they want to put everything into the software of Tally. So they said that the following is an extract of its final accounts for the year ended 31st December 2018. So this is a statement of assets, liabilities, and equity. And you can see that it is balancing. Total capital and liabilities is 448,500, and also total assets is 448,500. So they give you these ledgers, these are accounts, but they already have their balances. They are closing what? Balances, which will be opening balances for the new year of 2021. So we are going to see how do you capture these balances. That is the main interest in today's lecture. That is why the topic is called taking over balances. So I hope in your advanced accounting, you have looked at something like this, abridged financial statements, where we have, we don't display everything onto the face of the statement, but we capture details into explanatory notes. So that's why you see, for example, property and equipment, there is a note that you're going to look at to know what is entirely in this property and equipment. So this is not new to you. This is an abridged statement with explanatory notes. So shall see how to capture that. So these are the notes. We shall go through the notes as we are entering. What I'm interested now is to get information that relates about company creation. So they give you the notes, and then they also give you the transactions that took place in January. We shall come to that later. Then I'm interested in this last part. Assume or do the following to capture the above information using Tally. 1, create the company new names and registration number as the address. All transactions are VAT exclusive, and the VAT rate is 18%. The units of currency is UGX, which is Ugandan shillings. Then use Nene as your username and your surname as a password. So we need this information to create this company. So we come back to our Tally icon and we say create a what? A company. I'm selecting create a company, okay? We go to create a company. Now, I want you to look at something unique with what we have done. In the beginning, what we did, we dragged the folder onto the Tally icon. Look at the directory here. Already the directory at the end, it is showing that my Tally is saved in onto the desktop in my name and registration number, meaning that this work has already been saved. Members, are you able to see that? In the first 2 numbers, we would backspace and we type there the reg numbers ourselves. That is the main way. But in the shortcut where we just drag the folder to Tally, the directory will show that your work is on the desktop into your name and registration number. So then you have nothing to do with the directory. This time around, we shall not backspace. We shall just continue with creating the company. So they said, create the company in your name. That is what they said. They said, create the company in your names and reg number as the address. So all of you create the company in your name. Okay, and the address, they said we put our reg numbers. So you put your reg numbers. Okay, the rest are the same, okay? Secretarial compliance, we said we select none. Telephone number, they didn't provide. Mobile number, they didn't. Email, they did. The backup, we do not. Then currency symbol, they said that we are using UGX. So you type there UGX. And always we maintain accounts with inventory. So the financial year begins when? Now, in this question, they did not mention it clearly that the financial year begins on this date. But when you go at the beginning of the question, when you go at the beginning of the question, at the beginning of the question, they tell us that, read this last paragraph. Following the increase in volume of business, the company's chief accountant recommended the computerization of companies' accounting systems, and the company decided to computerize its records with effect from 1st of January 2021, meaning that what we are doing is from 1st of January 2021. So we come back to Tally and we say that the financial year begins on 1st of January 2021. And therefore the books will also begin on the same date. Okay, so if the financial year begins in January, that means it ends in December. That is why even in this information, the first paragraph, they said the company's financial year ends on 31st December of every year. So we are already capturing when it starts. Automatically Tally will know that it will be ending on 31st December. So we go ahead and complete other things. Tally Vault password, we do not put. Security control, we shall put a yes, because in this question, they gave us a username and also the password. They told us that we use Nene as username and surname as our password. So members, if they give you the username in capital letters and they just tell you that password is your surname, also put it in capital what? Letters. It will be so easy for the examiner to open your folder. So use security control, we shall say yes by typing a Y. The name of administrator, they said we put Nene. And then password, you put your surname. I'm putting my surname, so also put your surname. Repeat the password. Okay. Use audit futures, it's always no. Disallow in education mode, no. Currency symbol is GGX, and formal name, they said that the formal name is Ugandan shilling. So you come and capture it, Ugandan shilling. Okay. Is symbol suffixed to amounts? No. Show amounts in millions? Yes. Put a space between amount? Yes. Decimal 0? Accept. Have we all reached this level? I know now it is a walkover for all of you to create a company. So have we reached that level? We accept and continue. So just say yes, and we continue. So once I say yes, they now want me to access my company. I can type the name of the user. The username was Nene, and the password was my surname. So already I'm in my company. So you can see that by default, Tally is showing that the company is starting on 1st of January, meaning it will end on 31st what? December. That is why we don't capture the closing date. Automatically, it will be computed. Okay. For those of you who want a reminder on configuration, that is why I share recordings, members. We cannot keep saying the same things. So we have already created that company. Now the rest is to go and capture these details of the company about the ledgers and transacting and everything. But because I said I wanted to teach you the alternative way of saving, yeah? Now at this level, you have already finished saving your company. How did you save it? By simply dragging your folder and taking it to the Tally icon, and you are done. You saw it clearly that in the directory, it would show that your work is on the desktop, into your name and reg number. So before we do other things of the company, can we first escape, close this, escape and quit? So meaning that we have closed. Have you all escaped? You've already created the company. I just want you to see something. Escape and quit. Come back to your folder that you created and dragged to Tally. You see that already there is something in your folder. Double click on that folder and see. Open it. You will be able to see that Tally work is already there. This is how Tally saves, yeah? It always uses these numbers. So your work of Tally is already inside there. Okay. Now, how do I open it? Like I said in the beginning, the way you save is the way you open. So how did we save? we simply dragged this folder onto the Tally icon. So the same way to open this same company, again, go to your folder, anchor it, drag it to the Tally software, and release it to open. So I hope I've covered that. So you will go back, still work in education mode, silver mode. This time around, because your company is already there, it automatically goes to your company. Put in your username, Nene, and your password as your surname. Already you are back to the company that you've already created. So do you have the point, all of you? That is a shortcut of saving. Drag the folder to Tally to start to create your company. Once you finish everything, your work is there. You can always open it by doing the same, by again drag it. But I want to caution you, this is easy to do, but it is only going to help you in exams. When you go to the working world, no one will tell you that drag this folder, because companies will not be in folders. For purposes of exams, we tell you to put all your work in the folder on the desktop. But when you go to the working world, the companies will not be in one folder. They will be on the Tally icon under a certain directory. So they will always tell you that go to the Tally icon, in the directory, type this number. So you will go and double click on the Tally icon. When it reaches the directory, just backspace, type the number they have told you to be able to open that company. That is one. So do not just cram that the other one is actually saved. The other one will only help you in exams to make sure that your work is in one folder. But in practice, there will be no folder to drag. It will be only Tally, everything will be on that icon. So to open it, you will use the formal way that we learned, backspace and button, type whatever they have told you to do. That is one. Number two, some of you might get challenges in the exams. When you drag your folder to Tally, some desktops have, I think, problems in our computer lab. Sometimes you may drag your folder to Tally and it shows you an error, it cannot, yeah? So if it cannot, then you don't drag, you will use the other formal way. If it allows you, continue. Is that clear? Don't say I didn't tell you, because people always disturb us. But the shortcut will work for you in the exams, because it is simply dragging to Tally to save, and also dragging to Tally to open, as simple as that. But once you get a challenge, you can always use the other alternative. So can we now continue? We have already our company. We are now going to handle this number from beginning to the end. But like I said, I want you to pay maximum attention, because whenever we are setting exams, this is the format that we use. It is rare to set the other short numbers that we have already covered. So we are going to, remember we said that whenever you open up a company, the first thing is you're going to create what? Ledgers. But you see that this number is different from what we've been covering. This number, they've given us a statement of assets, liabilities, and equity, meaning that they want us to capture all these ledgers that you see in this statement, and we put their balances. So just like the way you did accounting one, when you open up a ledger that had balances brought forward or balances brought down, whatever word that you were using. So these ones, take them as opening balances, balances brought forward. They closed the year 2020, but now they are going to open the year 2021 in each of these ledgers. But also, we are going to continue in the same vein to create the ledgers. We said that when you are creating ledgers, always begin with the inventory. That is number one. Number two, after finishing creating inventory, go and create the other three ledgers that you can possibly forget: the VAT account, the purchases account, and the sales account. Some of you have been sending me messages when you create purchases, you're trying to maybe process a transaction of purchase and you can't continue, simply because you forgot to create a purchases ledger. So these things I emphasize, I know students do these mistakes. So I've said the first thing, we're going to follow this later, but the first thing is it is important to capture inventory, then create the other 3 ledgers that you can easily forget. One is a VAT ledger, a purchases ledger, and a sales ledger. Then you can go and create other ledgers. So we are going to come back to this later, but like we said, we begin by inventory. So under current assets, we have our inventory of 60,000, but there is a note. So we are going to go and look at that note, the details of inventory, which is note 2. So we have begun by handling note 2 because I've said always begin by handling inventory. So note 2, they give us the item of inventory, they give us the unit of measure and the formal name. And then they give us the quantities. Now, these quantities are the opening balances of these particular stock items. The numbers we've been doing, they were not giving us opening what? Balances. So these are the opening balances of inventory. And they give us their standard rates, both the unit cost and the selling price. And then the value, okay? So this value, how do we get this value? We usually multiply the quantities and the unit cost. I'm going to explain it when we are creating the ledger. So can we now go and create this ledger? What we are interested in is the item name, the units of measure, the formal name, the quantity, the cost and selling price. For the value, we don't capture it. It will automatically compute itself. All we need is to confirm that it is this value. Okay, so we go back to Tally. We said, how do we create inventory? We go to inventory info. Under gateway of Tally inventory info, enter. And then we said in inventory info, the first thing is to create units of what? Measure. So we come and create units of measure first. And then we say create. So the first unit of measure here, like we said in the other number that we did, when the units of measures are repeated, you capture it once. So we have 2 here, we have a liter and kilograms. So we are going to capture only 2 units of measure. So the first one is liter, LTR, and the formal name is liter. Then the second one is kilograms, which was abbreviated as KGS. And the formal name is kilogram. Enter and accept. Have you finished creating the units of measures? There were only 2. So once you have finished, you leave that window. Okay, so escape to go back to inventory info. So when you go back to inventory info, the next is to create stock what? Items. So you create stock items, enter. And a single stock, create. There is no need to configure because we did that already. For those of you who have forgotten, the recording is there. I'm not going to spoon feed you, okay? The recording is there, get it and follow through. So what is the first stock item? The first stock item is paraffin. So we come and say paraffin. It is under primary. And the units applicable, paraffin is measured in liter. So we select liter. Set standard rates. We always put a yes. Why? Because we want to capture the cost and the selling price. So you activate it by putting a Y, and then automatically the stock item of paraffin will appear. So what is the cost? They told us that the cost is 7,500. Enter per liter. Enter until you go to the selling price. The selling price per liter is 9,500. Enter. Now we have finished capturing the standard rates. The rate of duty. Now, since in the question they said transactions are VAT exclusive, so you always put 18 here. The rate of duty will be 18. Once you forget this, you are the people who call me and you say, Madam, I was putting VAT, but it doesn't compute itself. First thing, you forgot to put 18 under stock creation. So always remember that. We put 18 when we are creating stock items, and also when we are creating a VAT ledger. So we continue. Now, this time around, they are saying opening balance. In the numbers we did before, we would just enter and accept because we didn't have opening balances. But now we have opening balance. So the opening balance of paraffin is 4 liters. So we come and put here 4. And since this is an opening balance, it is going to be valued at the cost price. If you can recall your accounting, we said that using the historical cost concept, assets should always be held at the cost price. So the rate, we shall use the rate of the cost, not the selling price. So we shall put there 7,500. Then automatically the value of 30,000 that you see here in this box will come. Is that clear, members? The new thing we have learned here is how to put the opening balance, the 4 liter and its rate, and the value automatically computes itself. I hope that is okay. So we enter, and accept. Are we good to continue? Have you learned that? That is the only new thing in inventory when we have opening balances. So we create another stock item. The other stock item is jet fuel. So you type jet fuel. Jet fuel. And it is also measured in liters. We want to set standard rates. So the cost of jet fuel is 6,500 per liter. And the selling price is 8,300 per liter. The rate of duty will be 18. But now jet fuel doesn't have opening balances. It's not a crime. You just enter and leave it blank. Okay? The way we've been doing it normally. Enter and accept. Then the other one is petrol. It is still under primary, and petrol is measured also in liters. Yes, we want to set standard rates. The cost of liter is 1,500, and the selling price is 3,100. So the rate of duty is 18, and petrol had 4 liters as opening balance. So in the quantity we put, 6, it had 6 liters. So in the quantity we put 6, and the rate will be the cost price, which is 1,500. And automatically the value of 9,000 that you see here will be computed for you. So you enter, and accept. Lastly, the other item is gas. And the units applicable is kilograms. The standard rates, yes, we want to set them. And the rate per kilogram is 1,500. The selling price is 3,850. The rate of duty is 18. The quantity is 14. The opening balance, there are 14 kilograms of gas. And the rate is 1,500. And automatically the value of 21,000 will be computed. Enter and accept. So we have finished creating the stock items. Now, just like the way you do advanced accounting, when you finish a note, you tick it off. You will not have to do it again. So inventory note 2 is covered. Tick it from your hard copies. Those of you who have hard copies, you just tick it so that that one is done. At the end of the day, we shall have to cover all the notes. So go back to Tally, escape until when you go back to Gateway of Tally. So we've already finished creating inventory. If you've made a mistake, we've been telling you how to do this, how to usually change it. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to finish up that. Once you finish up, you type in the chat. Members, if you don't practice, you will find these things hard. If you wait to practice when we are in class, it will be so bad for you. So hopefully we have finished. Most people are saying done, done, done. Okay, so now we have finished creating inventory. We're going to go and create other ledgers. But remember, we are still handling this number. But like I said, always capture inventory first. Then the next thing, go and open the other 3 ledgers that you can easily forget. Then we shall go back to the question and follow it step by step after finishing all that. So let's create the other ledgers. We say to create them, we go to accounts info. Still under gateway of Tally accounts info. And then we say ledgers, create. So the first one is VAT. These are the ones you can easily forget. So the name is VAT and it is under duties and what? And taxes. Duties and taxes. For it, they didn't give us, sorry, duties and taxes, and the percentage is 18. Don't forget it. The type of duty is tax based on item rate. Those of you who have challenges with the VAT members, don't forget to select the method. The method is always tax based on item rate. If you look at the question, we've briefly gone through it, but we didn't say anything like opening balance for VAT. So in such a scenario, we just leave it. Then the other ledger that you can easily forget, we say is purchases. You can easily forget them. And yet, when you start transacting, you will see purchases and sales. So purchases, a purchase, okay, let's say purchases. And it is under purchases account. Just enter and accept. And lastly is sales. When you start working, if it has opening balances, you put them, there is no worry. So sales, and it is under sales account. Enter and accept. If it has opening balances, you put them. All right, now we finished creating those 3 ledgers. Those ones you can easily forget. You will remember when you're transacting and you get stuck. So that is why I always tell you, please create them first. Now look at this ledger. You see that it is tracking our opening balances. Yeah, it will be tracking both on debit and credit. Currently, our opening balances is only 60,000 and it is a debit balance, simply because inventory has a debit balance, being an asset. Members, also, as we are handling this number of taking over balances, still we are going to apply the accounting, the FAP that we did. If it is an asset, we see that assets have a debit balance. If it is a liability, they have a credit balance. If it is an income, they have a credit balance. If it is capital, credit balance, and expenses, debit balance. So we shall see that these balances are going to be tracked here. And by the time you finish capturing all the opening balances, your debit and credit should be equal. We shall see that. So we now go back to the question. We are going to go to this question. Especially what we are doing first is to capture the balances in the statement of asset and liabilities. When we finish, we shall continue to the additional information. Okay? So far we have only handled note 2. We take it off. Now let's go back and handle the question in an order. The other ones are a must. They are a must do. So let us start with assets. Under assets, they've given us tangible non-current assets, and under tangible non-current assets, they've given us property and equipment as note 1. So we have the entire figure here, but we need to go and see the breakdown. So you go up, you go to note 1. So note 1, they have told us that these are the tangible non-current assets. We have the item, their cost, accumulated depreciation, and their net book what? Value. So, for example, land and building, this was the cost. This was the accumulated depreciation, maybe basically for buildings because land doesn't depreciate. And this is the net book value. We know from accounting, net book value is cost minus accumulated depreciation. So now when we are capturing this, we shall not capture net book values. We shall only capture the cost and accumulated depreciation, and automatically Tally will compute the net book values, because the cost is going to be a debit balance, whereas accumulated depreciation is going to be a credit balance. So a debit and a credit, when they cancel out each other, we shall be remaining with this net book value in the software. So let's first go and capture this. So when we are capturing, we are going to capture the item, which is land and building, and then we shall capture this ledger, its cost, and also we shall open up the same ledger and capture accumulated depreciation. This is what I'm meaning. Let us look at land and buildings. So the name of the ledger is land and buildings. Land and buildings is a fixed asset, okay? So we shall create fixed asset. If you don't want to call them fixed assets and you want to follow this question in the field, for example, you want to call it tangible non-current asset, you can create a group and call it tangible non-current asset. But Tally already has a fixed asset in it. So land and buildings is a fixed asset. So we enter. Does it have an opening balance? Yes. The opening balance is now the cost. We capture the cost first, which is 992,000. So once you ask you, is it debit? Automatically Tally knows that land and building being a fixed asset, it has a debit what? Balance. So it will be you to either change it to credit. If maybe this value was a negative, we would put it into a credit. But now we all know that land and buildings is a fixed asset and it has a debit what? Balance. So you enter and accept. Now you start, our balances here are increasing, the debit figures. We had 60,000. When we add the land, it comes to this figure. So we have finished capturing the cost of land. Now, can we also capture the accumulated depreciation? So we are going to come and say that accumulated, we can summarize it and say accumulated. And then we say land and building. Accumulated depreciation, and we go and also create. So we enter. For those of you who keep unmuting, please only unmute after you've risen your hand up. So enter. Land and building, accumulated depreciation is still a fixed asset because it is accumulated depreciation for a fixed asset. So the category is still under fixed asset. Now, what is the opening balance in this accumulated depreciation account? The opening balance is 744,000. So you type it there, 744,000. Now, when you enter, Tally is seeing accumulated depreciation as a debit balance because it knows that a fixed asset has a debit what? Balance. But because this is accumulated depreciation, we want it to go and reduce the cost value of our land and building. So we shall turn the debit into a credit. Are you seeing this debit here? We are going to turn it into a credit because we want it to reduce the value of land and building. So how do I turn it into a credit? I guess type C and enter. So it has turned from being a debit to a credit. And now you can see here on our opening balances, already we have a debit amount and a credit amount and then a difference. but by the time we shall finish, the two debit and credit will be balancing. Have you noted that accumulated depreciation is still a fixed asset, but the opening balance, we change it from being a debit to a credit because we want the cost value to be reduced by that very figure. So I say yes, and I save it. Members, are you okay with accumulated depreciation? I am emphasizing the new things that we are seeing in this number. Are we all fine up to that level?
Yes, we are fine.
Okay, so we can now continue. The other asset is computers. So we're going to, in the same vein, we are going to continue and do the same for others. So the other asset is computers. It is still a fixed asset. And the opening balance, we are starting with the cost, which is 136,000. And this is a debit balance because this is the cost, yeah? So enter and accept. Now, so members, are we done? I've been allowing you some time to finish that. So can we continue? So just like the way you do advanced accounting, you look at the note and then you keep on checking, okay? So we go back to our statement of assets and liabilities. We have finished note 1. So we continue. The next thing is intangible non-current assets. So where we have a note, we shall be going to that note and we check it out. So the next one is intangible non-current assets, and under that we have treasury bills and goodwill. Now, we go to Tally and we create these two. For the intangible non-current assets, Tally does not have a group called intangible non-current assets. We can customize it if this was a working world. We can customize it. We go under ledgers and we say group, create intangible non-current assets. But for study purposes, Tally calls these intangible non-current assets investments. So all intangible non-current assets are under investments. So we're going to create these two. So we go back to Tally. The ledger is 14%. 14% treasury bill. 14% treasury bill, and it is under investments. Investments is just under indirect incomes. So the opening balance is 16250. 16250. And it is a debit balance because investments are also seen as intangible non-current assets. So we enter and accept. Then the other intangible is goodwill. Goodwill, which is also still under investments. And the opening balance is 23750, which is a debit balance. Enter and accept. Finished. So we go back to the question. We have finished intangible, and now we go to current assets. We are capturing in their order. Where we have a note, we go and check it out. So can we continue? Have you finished capturing the intangible non-current assets? They are under investments.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can continue. Under current assets, we have inventory. We have already captured this, so we tick it off. Note 3, we have datas. So we go up to note 3 and we look at these datas here. So note 1 and 2 is done, note 3 is datas. Remember, we said that datas in Tally, we call them sundry datas. But like I said, in working world, you can customize your Tally. You can even decide to call these ones accounts receivables, and you create a ledger and you call it accounts receivables, a group of ledger. Then it will be having these other ledgers as the receivables. So these datas are under sundry what? Datas, according to what we have been covering. So you're going to capture these datas one by one with their balances. So the first one is in-yard hostels. So we come and say INEAD, hostel. We are on note 3, INEAD hostels, and this is under sundry datas. So they didn't give us any address, we just leave it. But they gave us an opening balance, which is 6,000, and it's a debit balance because debtors are under current assets, and they also have a debit what? Current assets have a debit balance. So we enter and accept. The second data is Owino PLC traders. Owino PLC traders, which is also sundry data. They didn't give us any address, so we capture the opening balance, which is 4,500, a debit balance. The other one is Katono Association. Katono Associations, which is also a sundry data, no address. The opening balance is 34,000 debit. Then lastly is in Nene, which is sundry data, no address. And the opening balance is 0, so you just leave it blank and accept. Finished. So you see, when you learn Tally, these things are going to be so easy for you. So we have finished capturing data. I hope you have also finished that side. Are we through?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So we now go back to our question. Still, we go back to the statement. Remember, you're now going step by step. So we have finished note 3, which is about data. Note 4 is about bank and cash balances. So bank and cash balances, a total of 62,000. We then go and look at that note so that we capture the details. So we go to look at note 4. Note 4, they are giving us our bank and cash balances. We have Bank of Baroda and Eco Bank. So these are under bank accounts because these are both banks. Remember, we said if we had cash account and P&L account are always by default created in Tally. So we are only creating these 2 bank accounts, then we go back to Tally. The first bank is Bank of Baroda. We are now on note 4, Bank of Baroda. Bank of Baroda. And this is under bank accounts. Okay. They didn't give us account number, branch. We saw them in the previous numbers. So once you have them, you put them there. And the opening balance is 28,000, which is a debit because bank is a current asset and we have a debit balance. Unless if this was a bank overdraft, you would turn the debit into a credit. And also a bank overdraft is a current liability, not a current asset, okay? So the other bank is Eco Bank, still under bank accounts. And the opening balance is 34,000. Finished. So you go back to the question. We are following note by note. So we have so far finished all the assets. We now go to capital and liabilities. And under capital and liabilities, we have capital and reserves. So we have ordinary share capital. We go and capture it. Ordinary share capital is under capital, isn't it? So we open up that ledger and then put the opening balance. So the ledger is called, we are now handling notes. No, that one is not a note, yeah? It is on the statement. Everything on the statement should be covered. Where there are notes, you look at the notes. So the first one under capital and reserves is ordinary share capital, which is under capital accounts. So you select capital accounts. under the list of groups. So the opening balance is 405,500. This is a credit balance because we know that capital has a credit what? Balance. So automatically Tally will put for you because it knows these balances. It's up to you now to customize whether you want it to be a debit or credit. So capital is credit balance, so you accept. The next item under capital and reserves is retained profit or loss. So I want to cover this at once. Retained profit or loss, general reserves, and asset reserves are all found under reserves and surplus. So all these three are found under reserves and surplus. That is the list of groups. According to Tally, like I said, if you are working, you can always create very many groups, but I left the part of groups because that is basically not for our concern. We shall use what is already there in Tally. So for purposes of creating this retained profit or loss, general reserves and asset reserves, we shall put them under reserves and surplus. So let us create retained profit or loss. So the ledger is retained profit stroke loss. And this is under reserves and surplus. Even if you put it under retained earnings, it will still go under reserves and surplus. So better you put it under reserves and surplus. And it is an item of capital, yes. So the opening balance, if you look at the opening balance of retained profit or loss, it is an outflow. It is in brackets, meaning that this was a retained loss, isn't it? So if it is a retained loss, you have to type, you don't type it as a negative. You simply type 275,500. And Tally says this is a credit balance. It is a credit balance only if it is a profit. But since it is a loss, we shall turn this credit into debit. So it's said B to change it into debit. Have you got that? Why I'm changing it into debit? Because it was an outflow, meaning it was a loss, a retained loss. So you don't type it as a negative figure, you simply change it from being a credit balance to a debit balance. Enter and accept. Members, can we continue? Are you okay?
Yes.
Madam, I beg your pardon on return profit when it's in the bracket.
When it is in the bracket, it means that it is a loss. Okay, so once you put the opening balance here, okay, assuming this is the ledger, just creating it temporarily here. Okay, that is the ledger. I'm not going to save it. So I'm saying that if it is a loss, you type the figure, assuming the figure is 1,000, but it is in brackets. Once I enter, Tally is seeing, because it is reserves and surplus, which is a capital account. And by default, capital accounts have a a credit balance. It is seen as income, yeah, credit balance. But this is now a loss. So instead of being a credit balance, it will be a debit what? Balance. When you see an item of equity that has a debit balance, it means that that was a loss. It is not an income. So you simply change this CR into DR by typing there D. Okay? So you enter and accept. So for me, I'm not going to accept because I don't want to save it. Is that clear? The person who wanted my pardon?
Yes,
because
madam.
it was in brackets. Okay. So the other ledger is general reserves. General reserves. It is still under reserves and surpluses, and the opening balance is positive, so it is 105,500, and it will automatically be a credit. Okay, it is a credit balance, so you enter and accept. And then lastly is asset reserves. asset reserves, which is still under reserves and surplus, and the balance is 64,000. Credit, enter and accept. So going back to our statements, we have finished capturing items of capital. So the next item is non-current liabilities, which is a 5-year centenary bank loan. So this is a bank loan. It goes under loans in brackets liability. Are we there? Can we continue to non-current liabilities? We have a 5-year centenary bank loan, and this goes under loans in brackets liability. Please type in the chat if you are through. You can see that we are doing the things we've been doing, only that now we are adding in balances, okay? Yeah, so we can now go to this. It is not a note, it is direct. So we call it 5-year. The ledger is 5-year centenary bank loan. 5-year centenary bank loan. So we enter, and then this goes into under loans in brackets liability. The moment you put loans in brackets liability, you will see that automatically Tally will pick it as a credit balance. So when I put the figure there, which is 133750, automatically Tally shows me that this is a credit balance because it knows that loans are liabilities and all liabilities have a credit balance. So enter and accept. Someone is asking me what if it is interest on the loan. You have to first know interest on the loan is what? Is it a liability? Is it an asset? Is it an expense? It is an expense. So you put it under expenses. And automatically the balance will be debit because all expenses have a debit balance. We continue. So non-current liabilities is covered. We go back to the question. We now go to current liabilities. So under current liabilities, we have creditors, which is note 5. So we go to notes and look at note 5. You have to tick off the notes you've finished, yeah? So we are looking at note 5, creditors. So we have these 3 creditors. And now these ones will be under sundry creditors. But if you want to customize your Tally, you can still create a ledger that is for working purposes and call it maybe accounts payables. So let's create these creditors, Campi, Afayo, and Mook. So the first one is, we are now on note 5, Campi Limited. And this is under sundry creditors. They had no addresses. So the opening balance is 5,500, which is the credit balance. So we accept. The other one is Afayo Limited, which is still a sundry creditor. The opening balance is 4,100 credit. The last one is Mook Corporation. Which is still a sundry creditor. And the opening balance is 13,400. Finished. So we go back to the question. We were handling creditors, and the first one was current liabilities. The first one was creditors. The second one under current liabilities, expenses owing. These expenses owing are accrued expenses, yeah? But then they put for us, where do we put accrued expenses? They will be under current liabilities, yeah? Because accruals are current liabilities. So we go and open note 6. Note 6, we see the details. So we have salaries owing or salaries accrued, then insurance accrued. to distinguish them from the normal expenses, because ideally these would be expenses, but because they're not yet paid, they're accrued, then they become current liabilities. So we shall have a ledger called salaries. Salaries. Maybe you can say salaries owed or accrued, whatever you want, because now we want to show that this is a liability, and then we shall put them under current liabilities here. These are accrued. They are not expenses. We've been putting them as indirect expenses, but now since they are not yet paid, they become current liabilities to be settled in the next less than a year. So the balance on this account is 7375 credits. Why? Because accruals are liabilities and liabilities have a credit balance. Accept. The other one is insurance accrued, which is also a current liability. And the opening balance is 24,375. Okay. Are we good to go? Members, have you finished capturing? Do your opening balances tally? Open, check here, total opening balances. This debit and credit should be. Do you also have a difference of 500?
No.
Now, no what? Do you also have a difference of 500 here? On the total opening balances. Sometimes the way we capture these figures, we may miss it, but ideally if all figures were added well on the original number, it has to be balancing. So can someone unmute and let me know? Because now I don't understand the no you're typing.
Madam, may I beg your... No, madam. Was it a debit balance or credit balance?
Which one?
The salaries.
Credit. Why? Because it's accrued.
Okay.
Mine are tallying.
Yeah, if they are telling it, that is the right thing. Maybe I missed some figure when I was typing the 500. It has to balance. So right now, because of the interest of time, I will not go back to look for it. But like I've said, just for purposes of noting, you have to capture them carefully. Yeah. So it has to balance by 1609,500. Okay. Those who have differences or what, it's okay. For now, what we are doing is to understand how to go about it. When you repeat this number and you are concentrated, it is okay. It has to balance, and if it doesn't balance, don't kill yourself, okay? Sometimes a question might have an error, but ideally, if the question is okay and they were adding it up so well, you cannot have those what? Differences, just for purposes of learning, yeah? So we are going to continue. I just wanted you to understand that ideally, if everything, in exams, in most cases, we counter check, we do what we call moderating to ensure that questions don't have errors. So in most cases, you will find that there's the opening balances. In most cases, it's a trial balance. which is already balancing, or now like if we had, but because there is no time, we have understood what I wanted to communicate is how to capture opening balances. And that's how we do capture them for the various ledgers. Is that fine? Please do not waste time in exams. If your number doesn't balance, just continue. Because you might look for this 500 and you fail to get it, okay? So we have finished. Can we continue? Even if your difference is big, it is okay for now. You will repeat this number in your free time and make sure you capture things so well. I'm sure it will balance, okay? We don't have time to look for those differences. Make sure you have followed so well and everything will come out. So we can continue, meaning that, who is this one? We've captured everything unless if you are not following. We've been following the order. So meaning that by now we have finished capturing both assets and liabilities plus the notes. So we now go to the transactions, yeah? We are going to read the transaction and we see if there is any account we need to open up before. But I think by now, all accounts are there. So let's just read through to be sure. In the month of January 2019, the following transactions took place. So we have finished creating ledgers. The next thing is to transact, yeah? All accrued expenses as at 31st December were paid. So there is no ledger to create there. Credit sales were made to INEAD, no ledger to create. The company received cash from the following: INEAD, Hostel, and Katono, no ledger to create. It's a company's policy that all receipts are banked in EcoBank, no ledger. The company paid 1,400 to Campi Limited from Eco, no ledger. The following credit purchases were made from MOOC corporations, no ledger. So we have almost created all the ledgers. So now we are going to transact following double entry, okay? So meaning that leave this window. For those of you who have a difference, you will go and work it out again. Follow the report.
For motor vehicle.
Is there a transaction on motor vehicle?
Yeah, 6.
Okay, the company purchased the motor van, correct? So we can create that ledger. Now, even if you forget and you start transacting and you reach number 6, you can still go back and create motor van, yeah? So let's create motor van, which is under fixed assets, And it had no opening balance. That is just a transaction. So you enter and accept. Okay. Now, just in case you made an error, we know what to do. You can always go back. For example, I can check my ledgers. Let me look at Owino PLC. Okay. You can always go back and check your ledgers. If there is an error, you can always change it. And then Campi Limited, just sampling so that you know what to do always. So these are the ledgers we've created. Just in case you've made an error, you can always go back and change. So now can we transact? To transact, we said we go under Gateway of Tally and we click on accounting vouchers. So this is the easiest. We've always been transacting, okay? So you read the transaction first. The first transaction. Now, whenever we set these numbers, it usually has small transactions. Most of the information is about creating ledgers and taking there the balances. So please revise it and practice as much as you can. All accrued expenses as at 31st December were paid from EcoBank. So the nature of this transaction is a payment, okay? So we go to Tally and first say payment. Yeah, it's already in payment. Then we also need to understand the double entry. So what is the double entry for number one? We are paying off all accrued expenses.
Credit echo.
Can you type it in the chat? We are now transacting, members. The information I wanted to, this is now normal to all of us. In accounting, why do you begin with credit instead of debit? That double entry begins with debit. So what do we debit and what do we credit? Eunice. Members, you don't know this, we are settling off a liability because these were liabilities. If we are settling them off, we debit them, isn't it? So debit accrued expenses, credit EcoBank. Thank you. So we're going to go one by one. We're going to credit to debit salaries accrued and as we credit EcoBank, and then we do the same for insurance, as simple as that. Okay. So debit, first of all, debit salaries accrued. So we have, because they said all accrued expenses were paid. So we are paying off this balance here, which is 7,375, and credit EcoBank. So we are going to narrate and say that being payment made in settlement of accrued salaries. Being payment made in settlement of accrued salaries. Finished. Then the other one is, the other accrued expense was what? The other accrued expense was what, members?
Insurance.
Insurance, yes. So debit insurance with 24,375 and credit EcoBank. Same figure. Then you narrate and say that being payment made in settlement of insurance, accrued insurance, okay? Enter and accept. So we have finished capturing that transaction. So the second transaction is credit sales were made to Inyard hostels, 6 liters of petrol. So these were credit sales. So the nature of the transaction is sales. Okay. So they were made to who? To Inyard hostels. Okay. They are made to Inyard hostels. And if you had not created the sales ledger, you cannot leave that part. You will get stuck. But because we created it first, it is just simple. We continue. And what did they sell to Inyard? They sold 6 liters of petrol. So we type there P, petrol. The quantity is 6. The rate will automatically compute. Don't forget VAT. These are sales. So you enter once. The second time you enter, you type V, and VAT will automatically compute itself. Yeah. So we narrate and say that being credit sales of petrol made to Inyard hostel. Full stop. Being credit sales of petrol made to in-yard hostels, enter and accept. Finished. And then they said the company received the cash from the following. Yes, your hand is up, MTD.
Yes, good evening, Madam.
Yes,
Madam,
good evening.
we created sales, but actually we cannot go beyond that.
That is not true. Once you are on sales, the party account is the customer. Then the sales ledger, you have to click sales. You enter and be able to continue.
Madam, is what I've been doing, but I've failed. It just shows me in the list, end of the list. Thank you.
No. Please try to check your ledgers. Make sure that when you were creating sales, the sales ledger, you put it under sales account. Just go and edit your ledgers. Go to accounts info, ledgers outer. Then look for sales. Look at it. You put it under which category?
Madam, I put it under sales account.
First open it. Some of you are just assuming. First open it.
Okay, Madam.
It's easy to do errors. Then who was asking here? Kashemere, but it's a credit sale. Don't we say a journal? We only say a journal if this was an asset sold on credit, not inventory. Have you got it? If it is an sold on credit, then it's a journal. But please mute your microphone. Yes, praise. Some of you are playing on your Zoom things, putting up hands. Okay, we continue. Number 2, credit sales were made to, we have finished that. Number 3, the company received cash from the following: in-yard hostel 2,500, Katono 8,000. And they said that it is the company's policy that all receipts are banked on EcoBank account as soon as they are received. Meaning that when they receive cash from these customers, they bank it to EcoBank. So the double entry is debit EcoBank, credit in-yard or Katono, respectively. So we go and do that. So what is this? This is a receipt. So we are receiving from who? Let's first receive from in-yard hostel. So credit in-yard. The amount they gave us 2,500. Okay. And we debit EcoBank, we put it to EcoBank. Then we narrate and say that being check received from in-yard hostel. Then lastly, we also receive from Katono, so credit Katono Association with 8,000. Put this money to EcoBank, debit EcoBank, and then you write and say that being check received from Katono Association. Can we continue? Have you finished transaction number 3? We are left with only 3 transactions and we finish. Like I said, usually these numbers have less transactions, but most of the work is on ledger creation and taking over balances. Okay. So transaction number 4, the company paid 1,400 to Campi Limited from EcoBank. So this is a payment. So they are paying Campi Limited. This was a supplier, and then from EcoBank. So we shall debit Campi and credit EcoBank. So debit Campi Limited. How much? With how much the company paid 1,400, and then credit EcoBank. Credit EcoBank. So you put an explanation, write and say that being payment made to Campi Limited. So we go to number 5. The following credit purchases were made from MOOC corporations. 350 liters of paraffin, half the consignment was received. So we said where part of the consignment or the, so in this case we shall capture a half of 350, which is 175. So this is a purchase. So we come and say purchase, and then the party account name, they purchased from who? From MOOC corporations. And these are purchases. So the name of the item purchased was paraffin. I can type P, and then paraffin will come here. And then the quantity, you see that we had some quantities there. So we are buying more, we are buying 175. The rate will automatically come, enter once, enter the second time, and type V to capture VAT. So you come and save and narrate. Not who. As far we have said that 350 liters of paraffin, half the consignment was received. So what is the half of 350? You divide by 2. So that is 175. So we write and say that being credit purchases of paraffin from MOOC corporations. Finished. Lastly, which is number 6, the company purchased a motor van at 2,000 using borrowed. Let me read the question. The company purchased a motor van at 2,000 using Bank of Baroda. Yes. So they paid by check. So it is not a credit purchase. So that is why it is a payment. It's 2,000 credit EcoBank, which is by the same figure, and then you write and say that being payments made for the purchase of a motor van. Full stop. So we have finished capturing all the transactions, and then they said, remember to save remember to place your Tally folder in your folder at the desktop. So because we in the beginning, we dragged that folder there, our work is already there. So members, we have finished. They can add other things that we covered before. They can tell you to reconcile a lot of things. So what we have covered today is actually the last part of Tally about taking over balances. You can see that, okay, it was from Baroda, not Echo. Fine, we can edit it. Okay, so how do I edit it? Someone is just telling me that purchase of motor van was from Baroda, not Echo. I can edit it. I can come back to display and I go to trial balance and I look at my fixed assets, yeah? My fixed asset, I have motor van. So I go and open that transaction. You see, I'm already in my transaction. Like I said, once you know where the error is, the error was when you were buying a motor van. So where does the motor van go? It goes under fixed assets. So you go into fixed assets in your trial balance, open it. So once I reach this payment, I can still change from Eco Bank and I put Baroda. So it was Bank of Baroda. So I enter and I accept. So it is as easy as that. You can always make changes. I showed you how to do that in the previous classes. So I was saying that you have seen that what we have covered today, there was nothing new. The only thing that we were telling you is, showing is how to take over balances, just like the way you've been doing accounting manually. And they give you a trial balance, which has already opening balances. So when you're drawing the ledger, you first capture those opening balances. It's simply what we have done here. The rest is the same, okay? So someone is asking, when I'm transacting for the receipt and purchase, why do they ask me for the method of adjustment? Yeah, they usually ask it, but it is adjustment on account, just in case they ask you. Okay. Yes, it brings, let's look at the reports. We have finished, but we still have some few minutes to 9 o'clock. Yes, look at the balance sheets. The balance sheet will balance with the other difference of 500. So if the question had an error of that 500, you don't have to bother to look for it. But because you're going to do this number afresh, you may find that maybe somehow we typed a different figure somewhere, which is okay. So if you repeat it and it balances, it is well. If you do the number and it doesn't balance, do not, in the exams, don't waste your time to look for that figure. Just like the way you've been doing accounting. Yeah, sometimes they can give you a number, a trial balance, and it wasn't balancing. If it doesn't balance, don't expect your balance sheet to balance. We know that, okay? So, but if you have time, like now as you're practicing, you can repeat the same number. Maybe when we're writing 1,000, we forgot and wrote 500, something can happen. But automatically this difference will come here. The difference that we had when we were capturing balances, but the balance sheet will always balance with this difference. This difference is taken into the suspense account. Just like the way you were doing, and things don't balance, you create a suspense account. But like I said, ideally, when you're opening up these balances, if you were careful, yeah? Now for me, I'm teaching and capturing the figures at the same time. If the number had no error in the first place, it will automatically balance. Now, if it doesn't, if the number balances in the beginning and then later you find you have a difference, that problem now should be from transacting, not from capturing ledgers. So you see that now for me, I have a difference of 500 because even at capturing ledgers, that difference was there. So for you, if yours was balancing, by now you should not have this difference there. For those of you who are saying mine is balancing, yeah, you don't have this difference there. If that difference is there, it means you in the transactions you've made a mistake. As simple as that. All right, Edwin, even if yours balanced, we are going to have more numbers to do. So that should not be a point of rejoicing, yeah? Yes, it is balancing because you see, here it is balancing. Remember, are you looking at what I'm saying? It is balancing, but the difference has been captured here. That is why automatically it's balancing. It's like this difference has gone to the suspense account. But if the number had no difference in the beginning, this sentence of difference would not be here altogether. That is what I'm meaning. Okay. So I think I have covered most of the things. Now you need to do your part. Okay. So I am going to give you an assignment. You're going to look at all these numbers that we've not covered in class, because we've gone through 3 numbers. We have gone through the number on Akasa, we have gone through a number on Munakampala, and now Jimpeko. So I want you to also do these other numbers, Kachumita. Then there is also another number of Jikubeko, which is about taking over balances. Then there is also another number of Muogo about taking over balances. And then lastly, another number of Kamyufu, okay? So in total, there are how many numbers? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 numbers, yeah, that we've not covered. You're going to do these numbers as an assignment individually. Do all these numbers, put them in one folder and zip it. You're going to put them in one folder and zip it, and you email it to this email address. For those of you who have been doing corporate governance, you remember this email address? You're going to put it on this email. Or I'm going to post the email in the group, because if we close off, you will not be able to pick it. For we all have the study pack, members. We all have this, the manual that we have been following, okay? From the manual we have been following, I've handled this number, revision question 1 on Pakasa. I've also handled this other number of Kachumita. I've also handled this one that we have just covered of Jimpeko. The rest of the numbers in Tally that we've not handled in class are 4, starting with Kachumita. Okay, there are 4 starting with Kachumita. You will look at it, this one here, Kachumita. So you will handle that number. The other number is Jikubeko. The other number is Muogo. Those are 3. Then the other one is Kamyufu. Those are 4. So the 4 numbers. You're going to do them, put them in one folder, and email them on the email address I'm going to post. This work should be received by Friday next week. So you have 5 days, including the weekend. Including the weekend, yeah, to do only those 4 numbers. Put them in one folder, email them to the email I'm going to type in your group. How to zip your work. Once you have finished putting them in one folder, you will just right click on that folder. Okay, you will right click and then you send it to compressed zip folder. Right click, send it to compressed zip folder. Another zip folder will be created. That will be the one that you will email. Is that clear? If you don't know how to zip, you can always ask your colleagues. I know some people are already ahead of you. They know these things, yeah? So do that work by Friday. There is no excuse of, I didn't do my work on time. You have a lot of time. You can even do one number every day. So 5 days are even many. Okay. So those numbers are going to be considered. We've already discussed with Mr. Chintu. They are going to, because you've not done a test. So if you don't do them, you're only not doing them at your own risk. Jose, I hope you am clear on that. If you are a serious student, you can do these numbers over the weekend and finish. For those of you who think you don't have time, it is still fine. Otherwise, this is the end of Tally. If you have questions, always reach out to me, not on the numbers I've told you to attempt. Some of you might want me again to do those numbers, okay? The recordings are there. They will expire at the end of September. So always, if you have a question and we've covered it in class, replay that recording and see what we covered, okay? So that is it for today. We have finished. So like we said, if you want to see this work that we've done today, you just have to drag this folder to Tally and it will open it for you, okay? So that is it.